Hello and welcome to Design Northeast. I'm Tony Wyatt and I'm going to introduce you to the National Design Guide and its purpose. Places affect us all. They are where we live, work and spend our leisure time. Well-designed places influence the quality of our experience as we spend time in them and move around them. This design guide, the National Design Guide, illustrates how well-designed places that are beautiful, enduring and successful can be achieved in practice. This is the third part of a 7-part learning programme to help you understand and apply the principles in the National Design Guide in your work. The material was developed on behalf of the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government to be delivered at learning events for councillors and officers of local authorities throughout England. We had planned to hold a North East Learning Workshop at the Toffee Factory in the Ousbourne in Newcastle in March of this year, and this was to have included a walking seminar to enable participants to try out the guide on site. In the light of the new normal as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have also now developed the material into a number of linked online learning sessions. And this is the second of 3 sessions which introduced the 10 characteristics of well-designed places. The overall objectives of this learning programme to understand how the guide relates to national planning policy, understand how the guide relates to local planning policy and practice, become familiar with the 10 characteristics of the National Design Guide and their interconnections, being able to make practical use of the guide to evaluate design quality, and also to understand how the guide relates to tools and processes that you can use to secure good design in your places. The 7 parts of this learning programme are set out there on this slide, and we're going to be looking in this module in part 3 some of the 10 characteristics that make up a well-designed place, in this case movement, nature, public spaces and uses. As has previously been said, the 10 characteristics of well-designed places are at the heart of the guide, and they represent outcomes, so things that we expect to see in a place that works for people, a place that is successful. The guide does not talk too much about how you get to those outcomes, but they will also be explored in other of these modules. And the point of the characteristics, which are listed there on the 11 on the side on the left, are portrayed in the guide in this image as a wheel to show that they're interconnected and that none has precedent over the other, and also that there are 3 overarching themes linking all 10 characteristics: character, community and climate. Movement characteristic: to be accessible and easy to move around. And there's a very strong emphasis on the guide on movement networks that promote active travel. And you can see there that it's very much focusing on primarily being walking, that being the most important one. Cycling and public transport use are of course important, but walking is the one we can get almost everyone doing. And if we can reduce the number of short journeys, 1 mile or less, done by car, we can achieve a lot in terms of health, air quality, reducing carbon emissions, and also relieving congestion for the vehicles that do need to be on the road. But it is also re-emphasised the point about having a pattern of streets that are going to be safe and accessible, providing genuine choice of sustainable transport modes, prioritising encouraging walking, promoting activity, social interaction, and incorporating green infrastructure. More about that when we come to the nature characteristic. Within the guide, each of the characteristics tends to have 2 or 3 subsections. So in movement, the first subsection is focusing on giving people a real choice as to how they make journeys, and the importance of prioritising pedestrians and cyclists, which means creating routes that are safe, direct, convenient and accessible for people of all abilities, and not needing to rely on the car for everyday journeys. Optimising density around transport hubs, and that all modes of transport are positively designed into the built form so that people can move around in attractive streets. And throughout the guide, illustrated exemplars, and so here we can see on the left, highlighting that streets are places for people as well as cars, and this is a street in Poundbury in Dorchester in Dorset. Top right, you can see a dedicated pedestrian and cycle quiet way route which separates pedestrians and cyclists from vehicles here in Walthamstow in London. And then bottom right, a guided busway with dedicated pedestrian cycle paths provides fast and direct links to connect new and existing neighbourhoods with employment and services in Cambridgeshire. Section 2 in movement is having a clear structure and hierarchy of connected streets. And you can see 2 illustrations here. These are not actually in the guide, but they're provided to show on the left an early 20th century extension, in this case to Oxford, and although it's not in an American style grid, it does have a clear structure of streets, providing plenty of choices for all modes of travel. Whereas on the right is a fairly typical late 20th extension, 20th century extension on the edge, in this case also Oxford, but could be any of our towns and cities in the region, which unfortunately has limited connectivity to the main routes and lots of wriggly cul-de-sacs. So the choices of routes are limited, bus routes through it are limited, it's walkable but not very easy to navigate, and it's disconnected for walking from the rest of the city or indeed into the city. So this diagram from the guide is an example of what we would expect from new developments, that where possible the new development completes, mends or extends the existing network. And in this diagram you can see 2 new streets are created which link where possible with existing streets, and additional pedestrian connections are created as well. It's worth noting that a term often used in planning and development is access. However, it is often used in a narrow, minimal sense to mean allowing access for a particular group of occupiers, rather than the wider sense of making places accessible. So it would probably be better if we talked about building connected networks. This third movement section talks about the tricky question of parking. And how parking is arranged has a fundamental effect on the quality of a place or development. Well-designed parking is attractive, well-landscaped and sensitively integrated into the built form, so that it does not dominate the development or the street scene. And you can see from the top picture that shows exactly what happens when the design is well considered. By contrast, the bottom picture, you can see the street has been designed with the parking located in front of homes and screened with robust shrub planting and small trees. The planting is deliberately kept low to maintain visibility along the street and also towards front doors. And this scheme's at Halstead Park in Kent. It's worth saying that there are different solutions for parking, and they each work better in different types of location. And in general, a mix of parking solutions is needed within any particular development. The next characteristic, nature, is not actually something that appears too often in frameworks like this before, actually as a separate topic. And this recognises that we are a biophilic species. That means we like green space and we like the idea of living with other species on the whole. It's also recognition of the role that nature has in mitigating and adapting to climate change. And there are really three aspects of how the guide treats nature, which are represented by the following three subsections. And so these nature well-designed places are going to integrate existing and incorporate new natural features, going to prioritise nature so that we have diverse ecosystems that can flourish, and crucially we're going to be providing attractive open spaces in locations that are easy to access. So looking at these in turn, providing high quality green open spaces with a variety of landscapes and activities, including play. And the emphasis here is that we're providing this for people, and this section talks about how they should be designed, what they should include, and that they should be well maintained, robust and adaptable. And in particular that design should take into account the wider and local context, including existing landscape and ecology, how spaces are connected, the balance between public and private open spaces, their potential to contribute to a strategic green infrastructure system and to water management, their ability to support a range of activities and provide amenity value, and how they are to be managed and maintained. And the two illustrations from the guide, on the left you can see new landscape in the courtyards of these existing homes, which promotes well-being and social interaction. It includes abundant planting with trees and wildflower meadows, new paths and seating, and carefully integrated parking. And this is a place known as Maritime Street, Barrow-in-Furness in Cumbria. And on the right is a scheme in the city centre where they've introduced planting to soften and green the centre, and also provide pocket parks, so enhancing the quality of the public realm. And this is an initiative known as Grey to Green in Sheffield city centre. Second subsection is about using natural solutions to manage water. And that includes new water features that manage drainage and also existing watercourses, together with green and brown roofs, swales, rain gardens, rain capture and other drainage, water features create multifunctional green sustainable drainage systems. And the guide emphasises that they also enhance the attractiveness of open spaces and provide opportunities for play, interaction and relaxation. And on the left, in the illustration, you can see here that the sustainable drainage systems and trees are incorporated into the streets, creating a high quality green setting for new homes and contributing to the character of the neighbourhood. And this is a scheme at Upton in Northampton. On the right, ponds are used as a key part of the sustainable drainage system strategy to manage drainage and provide an attractive rural outlook from neighbouring homes. And this is a scheme at Halton in Rugby in Warwickshire. And the final subsection is all about promoting biodiversity, and that well-designed developments will actually include site-specific enhancements to achieve biodiversity net gains at neighbourhood, street and household level. That green corridors can be used to extend and enhance the existing ecosystems, and that areas of valuable biodiversity are protected and enhanced, and the priority is given to rare or critical habitats and species. So the emphasis here is very much promoting the concept of biodiversity net gain, i.e. that new development should result in more biodiversity overall, not less. Within the guide there are a series of these schematic sketches. In this case it's showing a variety of ways that nature could be integrated within, in this particular case, a relatively urban environment to provide benefits for people. It goes without saying that design teams need to incorporate the appropriate expertise to address this issue and base their strategies on a thorough analysis of baseline data. So this means having a landscape architect at the inception of projects and having access to specialists like ecologists and hydrologists. And the illustration is showing a series of different approaches or techniques to introduce nature and promote it within our new developments. Next characteristic, public spaces that are safe, social and inclusive, because our public spaces are the bits of the built environment that we all share. If you like, they are the shop window of any place, what we judge a place by. And the emphasis in this section is on the variety of types of spaces, be they streets, squares and parks, green and grey, large and small, formal and informal, busy and calm, and that they feel welcoming to all types of people. And there's clearly a link with the previous characteristic in the use of nature to enhance public spaces. So well-designed places support a wide variety of activities to encourage social interaction, have a hierarchy of spaces ranging from large and strategic to small and local, have public spaces that feel safe, secure and attractive for all to use, and have trees and other planting for people to enjoy, as well as helping with air quality, shading and climate change mitigation. This diagram from the guide shows how some of the elements that can help to make up well-designed public space. And so it provides illustrations of having surrounding homes to provide overlooking, having active ground floor uses with spill out activity, seating areas with trees providing shade, flexible hard landscape for a variety of uses, including markets, events and play, trees and soft landscaping between parking, and integrated cycle paths. And the main thing that keeps our public spaces safe is that they are busy and overlooked. And overlooking happens when the well-used rooms within neighbouring homes and businesses face the street. They will remain busy if they have a variety of things to do in them and have active edges. Active edges, as discussed in other characteristics, help to activate streets and spaces by people coming and going, sitting outside, stopping to window shop. And in the guide are three illustrations. Top right, a central urban public space with tree planting and grass, which provides peaceful space to meet and interact in the city. This is at West Smithfield in the City of London. On the left, a central pedestrianised street is activated with cafes and shops spilling out, and strategically located trees, benches and bike stands to separate the external space of shop units from a central zone for movement. And this is Castle Street in Kingston upon Thames. Bottom right, high quality green public spaces provide key pedestrian links to local facilities, a range of outdoor amenity including play areas and a net gain in biodiversity. And this is a scheme at Bewley Park in Chelmsford in Essex. Third subsection, making sure public spaces support social interaction. And the key to this is that spaces are well located, that they're attractive to all sorts of people. For example, that they have shade, formal and informal seating, and that the uses around the edge support the activity in the space. And the two illustrations show on the left a street that's designed to prioritise pedestrians with a focus on social interaction, such as play, communal gatherings and places to sit with neighbours. And this is Marmalade Lane in Cambridge. On the right, a new public space that accommodates a range of activities with a mix of uses around its edges, including a supermarket and housing. And this is the Russells in Broadway in Worcestershire. Next characteristic, uses, mixed and integrated. And the three bullet points reflect the three sections, namely well-designed places have a mix of uses, that there's an integrated mix of housing tenures and types, and keeping that mixed tenure neutral and socially inclusive. So why are we so keen to mix uses? Particularly as in the past, one of the main preoccupations of planning was actually separating uses. Well, if people live close to the facilities they need for everyday life, they can access them easily and are less likely to get in their cars. Businesses and public services are more viable if they have mixed uses, and mixed use areas are busy day and evening, keeping streets safe. Now, while some places such as large housing developments or business parks are seen as naturally single use, but in reality all can be enhanced by an element of mix, social and leisure facilities, a nursery, etc. And so you can see illustrated there on the left an example of new homes arranged above a parade of shops. And then top right, an estate regeneration including new mixed tenure homes, a community centre and a multi-use games area for social and physical well-being, and this is the Bourne Estate in Holborn in London. And then bottom right, a large mixed-use canal side development at Brindley Place in Birmingham, with a range of mixed uses including commercial and residential around a large central square. And the square is designed to accommodate a variety of uses and events. It also has many access points and is well overlooked by the neighbouring buildings. Subsection 2 is looking very much an emphasis on the guide about having a mix of home tenures, types and sizes. And whilst we often have policy requirements for affordable housing within developments, this approach helps deliver such housing but also ensures that communities are mixed and that there are different types of people around to perform different roles. But it's not just about tenures. A mix of home sizes and types can ensure a mixed community that people do not have to leave as their circumstances change. It's very important that tenures are not visible from the outside, so as not to divide communities or stigmatise certain people. So look out for inadvertent markers of social housing, such as different parking arrangements or doors all the same colour. When we're considering the needs of different groups, we should not assume they all want the same thing. For example, older people may want retirement villages, care homes, extra care housing, sheltered housing, independent living and age-restricted general market housing. Or they may just want the same houses and apartments as everyone else. The illustrations are a scheme on the left at Buccleuch House in Clapton, London, where the multiple tenures, including private ownership, rent, shared ownership and specialist housing groups, have no visual distinction in the facade, or indeed any difference to the communal entrances from the front. And on the right you can see a mix of housing types and tenures for a range of housing needs that are visually integrated, creating a mixed neighbourhood that faces onto a tree-lined avenue in a conservation area at the Avenue, Saffron Walden in Essex. So to summarise, well-designed, larger-scale developments include a range of tenures. They also promote a variety of development models, such as community-led development, self and custom build and build to rent. This all supports a diversity of delivery by small as well as large developers, and it also helps to create rich, diverse settlements. This subsection reiterates the need to avoid social segregation and promote inclusion by the mix of uses and tenures and the avoidance of barriers, and also using local facilities within developments to promote interaction. So you can see on the left, a village square is the focus of the community, faced by a mix of uses including a primary school with community centre, a nursery, shops, offices and flats, and extra care housing with a public cafe. It creates a popular flexible space for community activities, and this scheme is at Lightmoor in Telford in Shropshire. And then on the right, a new church, cafe and community space is integrated in the surrounding new residential development, and this is a Baptist church in Hackney in London. We hope that you found this part of the programme useful, and the next part of this learning programme will illustrate the remaining 3 characteristics, and we will advise you when it is available. Please get in touch with my colleague Alan Warne if you want more information, or visit our website designlimited.com. Thank you.